calls for calm from electoral authorities. The atmosphere is tense but peaceful in polling stations as the nation balances hope for peace with concerns about democratic legitimacy. Equally, we talk about Cameroon on today's program. The Pan-African debate as Cameroon stands at a critical juncture. The country's constitutional council is poised to announce the final result of the deeply contested October 12 presidential election, with President Paul Biya appearing as the likely winner according to provisional results indicating he holds just 53% of the vote. Tensions simmer across the nation. Opposition leader Issa Chiroma Bakari, trailing with about 35%, has already challenged the election's transparency, heightening anxiety and sporadic protests across the nations and in cities such as Yaoundé and Garoua. Security forces have responded with tear gas and detention. The stakes extend well beyond Cameroon's borders. Cameroon, as a regional gateway and economic lifeline for Central Africa, instability here risks disrupting the border region's fragile peace and economies. Yet it is precisely this interconnectiveness that demands a collective and calm approach. Preventing a descent into chaos requires deliberate action from all stakeholders: government, opposition, civil society, and international partners. First and foremost, adherence to the rule of law and respect for the Constitutional Council's independent judgment is essential. How to stabilize the climate amidst rising anxiety and election violence in Cameroon remains our greatest concern. Stay with us as this is the Pan-African debate. Hello viewers and welcome to the Pan-African debate on your Pan-African channel. This is Afrique Media. Another chance, another opportunity for us to discuss some of the key events in the African continent. And today our eyes are focused on Ivory Coast. Ivorians are heading today to vote in presidential elections where Alassane Ouattara is seeking a fourth term. He's already spent 15 years in power and he's at age 83. If elected, he's going to spend another 5 years, which will mean he will be close to 90 years when he leaves power. To extend his 15-year rule, possibly he will be 20 or the longest serving president in Ivory Coast so far. We shall equally talk about Cameroon as well as the atmosphere that surrounds the expectation of the election results from the Constitutional Council and the atmosphere in Cameroon, as well as possibilities of mitigating or possibilities on ensuring a calm atmosphere as the election results are expected from the Constitutional Council. We shall expect to hear from you during the program. We always be pleased to get your contributions. If you have any, we shall give you the lines through which you can contribute. You call us directly and tell us what you think. We shall be glad to hear from you. And this day on the program, we'll be pleased to welcome those who will be helping us to discuss this topic. We have civil society leader who is here with us in the studio, Dr. Ako John Ako. You are a civil society leader in Cameroon, and we're pleased to have you on today's program, the Pan-African Debate. Doctor, it's a pleasure having you.
Yeah, equally a pleasure, Big Ben, and to millions of televiewers of Afrique Media. Professor Mark Anthony, after a very tedious campaign, again sharing the platform, we share this pleasure. Once more again, we are talking Africa, and it gives us an impression that Africans, 60 or 70 years after independence, are unable to organize a classroom election. And that classroom elections, we see that again more shocking, that many of those territories, they are lagging, are former French colonies, and we equally come to believing that those who say presidency of Africans have been decided by Paris might just be correct. Why? Cote d'Ivoire? Why Cameroon? Why can it only come out from Chad or from Togo or from maybe Central African Republic? Why the troubles and the hurdles when it comes to elections? And somewhere, those of us who have equally believing that Africans can do it and they can do it better within the Pan-African spirit had equally been accusing that those in power are responsible for the quagmire and the nightmare that befalls Africans whenever elections are called. This is Cote d'Ivoire. Cote d'Ivoire, a country that was made and marbled by the tension of election in the years of Laurent Gbagbo, and which Alassane Ouattara promised many Ivorians that he was there to serve his mandate, and why not, he will have to leave office. It is, again, this is the fourth mandate he's seeking. The first mandate was that his Dauphin, or the chosen candidate, died abruptly. He has completed the mandate, and again, few months to these particular elections or so, he organized a press conference telling Ivorians that it is need and that it is time for him to leave over power, and that he will be happy to go for rest and then give power to a young and vibrant leader. But what have we seen? Like what always happened many times, and others thinking that Africans need to be very careful when it comes to political offices. Political offices which some equally think that it is too appropriate, and why not organize for their village and town men, and that whatsoever that is not possible, they should equally leave for other family members to control. But today, Ivorians keep on being lavaging and worried that those vibrant opposition candidates were equally elected or rejected, and not different from what we found in Cameroon. And the intimidation, what we see again, is that Alassane Ouattara is standing for an election, and many other village people and tribal men that do not support his candidacy are presently being intimidated. Military force has been come and order to bring order. Is this the kind of republic that many African wish? Is this the kind of leadership that we have been hoping for, that we can't accept to take on retirement, stay home, and see others succeed? When there is alternate in power, it brings about changes, it brings about development, it brings about new aspiration, and again, calmness in the minds of the citizens. I fear that the aftermath of the Ivorian election might not be different from what we are finding presently in Cameroon, for it is always said that the same causes will obviously and always produce the same effects.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Definitely we'll have time to discuss more on that, and we want to equally welcome Professor Akumo Mark Anthony. You're a Pan-Africanist and political analyst. Professor Mark, it's a pleasure having you on Afrique Media, the Pan-African channel, and you're welcome to the Pan-African debate.
Thank you, Big Ben. It's indeed a blessed afternoon. I also want to say hello to my fellow panelists, especially Dr. Ako. Like he rightly said, it has been a week, a long period of, I think, almost a month or two of campaigns and pre-campaigns and campaigns. And we had not had the opportunity to sit down, but we met on your platform today. And to my brother and you, fellow panelists also. It is a wonderful day, and I think most Cameroonians who are watching at us and Africans who are watching us here this afternoon, they should be asking a lot of questions about democracy in Africa, because sincerely, in most French-speaking countries in this continent, we have a problem with the whole idea of democracy. The question we should be asking is, should we institute democracy as we inherited from the colonial masters? I've been one of those persons who have been here on this same platform to say I don't believe in democracy per se, the European model. But at the same time, I think that if we have decided to embrace democracy, we should be able to institute it according to the book. What do I mean by that? I think it is important for us to realize that democracy is not based on what favors us. It is based on the people, whom the people choose. And if we think we can use intimidation and use the military as a means to curtail the success of others and might be keep it for ourselves, then at the end of the day, there will be no difference with a Nazi government being, in fact, such a government will be considered as a Nazi government. And I think tyranny or maybe intimidation is not the best way forward if truly we want to build, if we want to develop. We have a nation like Ivory Coast, which is supposed to be one of the developing nations in West Africa. It's true that I think for about 10 to 15 years today, we have had stability in the country and kind of peace in the country, not because the people could not challenge the reign of OUATTARA, but because I think most of them decided to say, okay, no, since he has given us promises, let's give him the chance. Let him do what he came to do. But he now came up again for another term, fourth term. But we are talking also of Cameroon, where we have an indefinite term of office. We have a president who has grown of age, who is still winning elections, not necessarily because Cameroonians are voting, because from the last elections we can use the polls to make some declarations that we believe that the people necessarily did not vote as per se. We had 8 million voters who were supposed to go to the polls. I think only about 4 point something million people voted, went to the polls, which is disheartening as well. So we have a great job to do, but at the same time, we are hoping that things will change as days progress.
All right, thank you very much, Professor Mark Anthony. Let's talk with Dr. Elijah Nwoko, who is Director of Center for Africa Development. Dr. Elijah, you're joining us via Zoom. It's a pleasure having you this afternoon. We're discussing Cameroon. We're discussing Ivory Coast. Both nations are facing a presidential election, which, of course, has made the atmosphere very much uncertain. Ivorians are heading to the polls today to decide, of course, who becomes the next president. 8 million as well voters, the same as Cameroon. Dr. Elijah, it's a pleasure having you this afternoon.
Thanks very much for having me, Louis. It's a pleasure to be on your platform one more time. I want to say that the topics that we're going to be talking about today are an interesting tale of two countries with similar background, similar situations, what's happening in those countries, but a little bit of a different result. If you look at Ivory Coast and see what's happening in Ivory Coast, the playbook is exactly the same playbook like what's happening in Cameroon. I mean, the prelude to the elections. It's a typical playbook. I don't know if it's coming from the French government or it's coming from a typical French colony or their style of politics. They go into elections not to lose. That's the policy, and that seems to be the goal of French elections. They do not go for elections. They don't. Their own level of democracy in French Africa is a camouflage. It's a whitewash. They do not go to elections with any iota that they could lose, and that's what we see happening in Ivory Coast, where the same playbook, like I said. Number one, constitution was changed. Number two, opposition leaders are tactically eliminated. Number three, you have a weakened base. Number four, you have disillusionment among the population in terms of those who are actually registered to vote. Number five, it's the same playbook like what's happening in Cameroon, even though the results of the two leaders are a little bit different, because if you look at what's happening in Africa and you talk to Ivorians, whom I talk to very regularly because of some of the things that I do with them, you will see that there's economic boom. Let us not deny that. There is economic boom. If you compare from the time of Gbagbo to this moment right now, Ivorians feel a little bit more confident of what's happening in the economy, and they're more upbeat about it. But in terms of democracy and what's happening in these two countries compared to what's happening in Cameroon, it's exactly the same thing. But in terms of the economic outcome, two dichotomies, completely different things. Cameroon is wallowing in one of the worst economic performance in the world as we speak. 187th in terms of economic performance. But if you look at what's happening in Ivory Coast, they're way up there. So the discussion today is going to be a tale of two countries with similar political background, similar political tactic, similar political playbook, but a little bit of different results. So it's a basket of deplorables where you have the good ones, you have the bad ones. But again, democracy in Africa, it's not a game that is played on a level playing field. It's a game that people go in just for the sake of whitewash. Especially, when I say Africa, I'm talking about Francophone Africa. Let's be very specific here. Francophone Africa, their democracy is a sort of a whitewash. They go in to show some semblance of democracy to the Western world in order to borrow and do this and do that. So it's going to be a very interesting discussion to discuss these two countries, the same playbook, but a little bit of different results.
Thank you, Dr. Elijah. We got to clearly, and let's talk with Mr. Tulu Wanimi Adeyefa. You are an economic expert, and we're looking at Cameroon, we're looking at Ivory Coast, we're looking at how to prevent a possible conflict in Cameroon, which serves as a lifeline for many CEMAT countries. Mr. Adeyefa, it's a pleasure having you on the program, the Pan-African Debate. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Comrade Louis. It's a pleasure to be here. And the issues being discussed today are critical to the countries in question and even the future of Africa as a continent. While my other panelists have spoken about the disparity in the economic situations between Cameroon and Ivory Coast, I see people voting and being voted for in an election. But when we go into political history and theory, Francis Fukuyama identified 3 pillars for what you call a democracy. That's the state capacity, presence of the rule of law, and democratic accountability. Across Africa, what we've seen so far is a semblance, a mimicry of democratic accountability, where you try to vote and be voted for in an election once in a couple of years. But that alone itself does not capture democracy or the ideals of democracy. What with the rule of law? Are we fair to ourselves? Is the constitution strong enough? Are there checks and balances? And across all these countries, you notice that some of these things are absent. And that also feeds into the economic performance of the nations as we have today. You have Ivory Coast, who is doing well economically because the state capacity is there and progressive ideas are being implemented by the government, while in Cameroon, they're having their own challenges. So overall, I feel democracy is the best form of government if practiced, if implemented successfully. But unfortunately, what we've seen thus far is, an aberration of the democratic system. So we look forward to dissecting the issues today. Thank you.
Thank you for accepting to be part of the program. Mr. Ndium Emmanuel, you are a civil society activist based in Cameroon. We're looking at 2 issues today. We want to welcome you on the program. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, it's a pleasure having me. And I want to greet all those who are watching us across Africa and the entire world. Today we are talking about 2 nations, and in joking parlance, some time ago one was termed as a law of the other, which means that when we look at it critically, they have a lot of things in common. It is really regretful that Côte d'Ivoire, at this particular point in time, should still be having one person, a person who has brought untold suffering on the people, whom at one point in time actually declared himself that this mandate was my last mandate, if I'm not mistaken. And people were like looking up to Côte d'Ivoire. They were looking at Côte d'Ivoire at that particular point in time as a point of reference as far as democracy is concerned. But later on, he came back to say, no, I've seen that I'm the only man who is fit for the job. That's Africa for us. And I'm tempted to believe that if we go back to our various fondoms, where we come from, for example, I come from the fondom of We have not had succession disputes there because the rights, the traditional rights put in place by our ancestors, how a fund ascends to the fundum, are well clearly respected. We don't vote a fund in our place. So I'm beginning to think that in as much as we could sing democracy, if we could craft out this aspect of voting, then democracy can work. Where democracy has had a lot of problem in Africa, especially in French Africa, is when it comes to voting. Because you will not explain why people will spend money, spend millions for voting, for election materials, then spend millions again to pay for fraud, then spend millions again to hire arms to turn back against their own citizens in the name of democracy. So I've been saying since 2020, if this word democracy is not working, maybe if we change the appellation to democracy, it can work. Because we actually see our politicians becoming crazy, mad, at power. You don't chase out the same people if you think they voted you and they want to sit and roll stones. So I think democracy actually in Africa has failed, and it has failed woefully. It is time for the African youth to rise up and look for a way, a new way, chart for a new way to craft out their leaders, not through the ballot box. The ballot box in Africa is a fertile ground for fraud.
Okay. The ballot box is a fertile ground for fraud, but we still see elections happening. And today, Ivorians are going to depose Dr. Ako Jonako to decide. Alassane Ouattara is seeking the fourth term, and he is age 83. We're talking about the country that has majority of young people, and he's seeking a fourth term, which is very, very controversial. What's your take on that?
Yeah, there is nothing much which Africans have not seen before, especially when leaders lie a lot. If there was somebody to be disqualified during these polls, would have been Ouattara. Ouattara by himself made a social contract with the people, promising them he will not stand again. And is again coming back to ask about our consciences as Africans. We had a culture. At one point here, I even advocated for African traditional shrine in oath-taking for those who wish to be leaders. And I will continue to say it again. Those who go to the shrine in the village, in our villages, if Mr. Ndiwum is telling you that the fundum of COM has never been corrupted, it's because people know the consequences if you go to corrupt the fundum. People know the consequences of if you manipulate with the chieftaincy tool of a particular village. When you go to places like, I believe Japan is a very clear example. After the prime minister is nominated in Japan, you go to the national shrine. The belief in front of that shrine is that I promise to serve my people sincerely and in honesty, and that any fault I do, let the gods strike me. We need to carry the gods of Africans to a political capital where we build a national shrine.
Now,
so that
we're talking about shrine. Look at a country like Cameroon, where personality has been given a fund of fund, which
no, that is not the case. That's not what we are saying here. He's not the fund. That's politics.
That's an artificial
he's
title.
giving all the powers.
Yeah, when you come, it is the honor.
It's political title.
Within Africans, we have that honor that when some great personality visits our area, we decorate them as such.
Yeah.
Yes, even has been decorated in my place as a Seseko. He was stressed by the people of Banyo within that title because it's the highest rank of the land. And we are blessed to have received him in Banyo. So what we are saying here, honestly, if we could avoid lies telling, if we could fight stealing, or what we call in modern grammar transparency in governance, through African traditional shrines, which are made national centers. This is where religion darkens all over African minds. When we say it today, people say that no, they are worshipping idols. Every country, every region has a belief. If you ask the President of the Republic today that take an oath that this election, you won it, you realize that heads will screw. Some people will refuse to enter that particular place. We know the consequence of what it is. If we ask the Minister of Territorial Administration, say, take this broom, swear by the stone that these elections are clean and sincere. Some people will escape before they get there. So I don't want it. This is how we judge our things in Africa. And I don't know why we bring an international instrument, which I call it an international scam technology, in the name of democracy, where elections have been organized in Cote d'Ivoire. This prime minister went for treatment in France, came back 3 months after he died. And then the person who claimed that he was not prepared to stand declared himself the candidate for the party. Yes, owing to the fact that that was the death of a candidate in your party, what is the reason now that you are deciding to run an election? And Machiavelli said it well, that absolute power corrupts absolutely. He is not talking of the absoluteness in you. He's talking of the consequences that might befall your people if you decide to stay in power above the limit provided by state instruments, the Constitution. You have 5 years mandate, renewable once. Mr. Ouattara, I said several times, I believe Plo Lumumba has been saying it, that every good dancer must know when to leave the stage. Because if you leave the stage, when the waters are dark or dirty, know that there is nothing for history to remember about you. And sincerely, the Ivorian people, if they need to know well, yes, he came. People said Ivory Coast has a very performant economic situation. Nobody has asked where Ouattara got such money to revive the Ivorian economy. The president in Ivory Coast, Ouattara, knows very well that a lot of money was given to him by the French to launder his identity after the Ivorian Civil War, and that one part of it was for him to carry out investment like he did. He has organized the African Cup of Nations, which was thought to be one of the best. Why not just stay quiet with this glorious history you have had in 15 years and say, my people, I would like to see how Ivorians can live without me, and you live honorably. We have seen in many countries in the world just criticisms of mismanagement of funds. Ministers have stepped down. Prime ministers have refused to continue governance. Can we have this in Africa? Can't we one day see somebody that behaves like Nelson Mandela, whom even if he decided to go in for 10 mandates, Mandela would have won, because he has the history of the liberation of the South African people. But just after a mandate, he said, I will not do it again, that my deal is over. He needed a free South Africa, and just that, his mandate closed. Okay. That is why we are reading him throughout legislative buildings and institutions across the world. Mandela's image keeps on ringing in people's mind of that identity. But where do we destroy our own legacy? By our own very self. Okay. Going on the other side of Africa, you find somebody who is 93 years old. People are preparing to die and use bullets on civilians. And I ask, where can a 93-year-old man be leading Cameroon to? What is he having that he has not done for 43 years that he's willing to do? This is how we destroy. When he took power in 1982, I'm telling you, get back to visit the records. You saw how Africans. No, I said we have to talk something with sincerity here.
We'll come back to the aspect of Cameroon.
Please just permit me. I'm telling you that these stories are similar. I remember Ouattara took power in a hotel. Maybe others never knew. Ouattara was sworn in a hotel in Abidjan, not in a court session, even by state magistrate. How he got to power, he has forgotten. And that in the same situation, like I just said, if he does not take care, he might end up like the other. And maybe the International Criminal Court, pray for him that in 2027, Emmanuel Macron moves out. And you don't know who is coming the next rebel leader in France as the next president. A lot of them will be taken for the ICJ. Is that the situation that we want? Is this how we want to marry in politics? By killing the image which we have built by ourselves and then come later to blame the people. This is an election in Cote d'Ivoire, and I believe Ivory Coast belongs to all Ivorians, and every Ivorian has the opportunity and has the mind to say we have to vote him out. Power is made for everybody. Anybody in Cote d'Ivoire can succeed for the chair of the president. All of us should have that mandate, and I believe it will be very positive for us to do what is right.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Ako Jonako. Professor Mark Akumomantoni, you're listening to Dr. Ako. Many, while criticizing Alassane Ouattara, equally think just like we got it from Mr. Adeyefa. He's been praised that there's been a lot of economic development and infrastructural development equally in Ivory Coast, despite the criticism. At his age 83, do you think he still needs time to do more with regards to the fact that he has done what is being considered as done more since 2011?
You see, in East Africa, there is a name that almost every one of us know. He was cut short. John Magufuli. When he stood for the presidency, his first term in office, in 5 years, he accomplished what most presidents in Africa had not accomplished in their lifetime. The question is, what was his strength? What gave him the capacity to accomplish what he accomplished within 5 years? When he ran for the second term, he won, which was completed by Silo. You see, what makes me feel disappointed with most of the so-called leaders of most of the French-speaking African nations is the fact that some of them think they need to be in power for life before they can accomplish something. Ouattara came to power. The first term, he did what he could do. Second term, he did what he could do. He deceived the people that he was stepping down for his prime minister to come up. And the prime minister was later on killed, or let me say died. He ran. Now he is 83 years old. At 83, I think most of them at that age do not have the concentration and the capacity to focus and to generate new ideas. In his past terms, he has done something because of the state machinery to be able to establish an economic standard. So economically, he has been doing something that progressively. But when it comes to accountability, or let me just put the word, when it comes to the whole idea of voting and being voted, for example, you realize that, like somebody said, no government in power organizes an election to fail, to lose it. Implying that most of the times when they organize the elections, they organize it to just deceive the international bodies that we are practicing democracy. We organize an elections, and for that reason, it was through an election that I won the seat where I am in today. The people voted for me. But it gets disturbing when you sample the people. You get to realize the same people they claim that voted for them didn't vote for them. What happened? There is a lot of fraud that takes place. Today, the people of Ivory Coast are on the polls. They are voting today. Let's be sincere. What will happen behind is something that any right-thinking person will feel disappointed, because to an extent that is state coffers being emptied to organize a scam, to deceive the people that they are electing a president whom already knows that he is not going to leave that seat until he does what he wanted. And you see, one of the things I want to use this platform to say is, when fraud is organized by the state, it is an indirect way to provoke rebellion. When fraud is organized by the state, it is an indirect way to provoke rebellion. It is the violation of the rights of the people. You can't steal from the people, then you expect them to be peaceful. It is just simple. Let's use a simple analogy that you are in your house, you have your goods, somebody breaks into your house, steals from you, then expects you to be peaceful. As a right-thinking human, you will react if you have the opportunity. You will act immediately if you have the opportunity to snatch back what is yours from the hands of such a person, and if possible, make sure you pull this particular individual to justice.
All right.
And so we have a situation in this country, I mean in Ivory Coast as we are talking right now, which is practically, let me say, it resembles what is happening in almost all the French-speaking African countries.
Okay.
You have a situation where individuals use the ballot box as a means to deceive the people. And once that is done, they come back to say we won. Using state instruments, for example, the military is there to back them up. They use the security forces to back them up and intimidate the people. And when that is done, what do you expect from the people?
Okay.
And at the end of the day, they'll point fingers and say the people are the ones who are causing rebellion.
All right. Prof, thank you very much. We got you clearly. And just time for us to talk with you, Dr. Elijah Enoku. Ivorians believe that since 2011, their country has witnessed a lot of massive development when compared to other countries in West Africa like Burkina Faso, Mali, and the rest. Under Ouattara, who has been in power for 15 years and is seeking re-election for another fourth term. What's your analysis with regards to that? He's 83 years old, but he's been praised for what his country has achieved since 2011. And that's why, of course, many Ivorians maybe believe that he should be voted again, if possible.
Luis, like I said in my prelude, the playbook that's happening here, I want Cameroonians who are listening to me to also listen to this, because it's the same playbook that is going to play out in Cameroon. I'm very categorical about what I'm saying because I know the intel. I know what I'm talking about. Let's begin from where the genesis of the problem that my colleagues in the studio already mentioned, issues and so on, how he changed the constitution. Now, this is where the problem is. When Houphouët-Boigny was the president of Ivory Coast, and he ruled Ivory Coast for a very long time, a popular uprising, I repeat, a popular uprising took him out of power. Now what happened? This is the playbook that the French are using. What happened? The French, have realized that when Gbagbo came to power, Gbagbo is a Pan-Africanist, and it's against French interests in Ivory Coast. That's the first thing. That's number one. It's against French interests. So what did they use? What they have used is this. They came into the country, they fragmented the country between the north and the south, and the same revolution, the same people who ousted Houphouët-Boigny, there was no difference between a northeast and a southeast. All what they were fighting for were against dictatorship. That same people have been fragmented. And these people cannot agree. These two people cannot agree anymore. Because the French have realized that if the North and the South, I mean the population, I'm talking about the population, I'm not talking about politicians. If the North and the South agree together, there is no political, hingement like Ouattara that will be able to come to power and change the constitution and eliminate opponents. Because if you look at even the opponents that he had eliminated, if you look at Tijani, if you look at Gbagbo, he eliminated Tijani on dual nationality. But Ouattara himself has dual nationality, has French nationality. He eliminated Gbagbo on conviction, but that conviction French textbook that they are going to implement in Cameroon. I know we're going to talk about Cameroon. That is why I'm making reference to Cameroon so that people should understand what's happening in Ivory Coast. Number three, if you look at the institutions in Ivory Coast, the institutions have been so weakened in such a way that the Supreme Court of Ivory Coast, they used to have radical members of the Supreme Court that withstood changing of the constitution and so on and so forth. What happened? This man eliminated them tactically. What has happened in Cameroon? If you look at the Cameroon Supreme Court and the Constitutional Council, whatever you call it, ELECAM, they have been filled with members of the ruling party. All five of them, they were either former members or adherents of the ruling party. So it is the same playbook. And if you look at what's happening in Cameroon right now, the government of Cameroon is now trying to divide Cameroon between the Northeast, those of the Bulu and the Beti tribe, Anglophones and Bamileke, is the same playbook. So what is happening in Ivory Coast is a playbook that is masterminded from France, because Ivory Coast is the bad boy of Africa. Why do I say so? If you look at the revolution that is sweeping across Francophone Africa, Ivory Coast seems to be an exception. My colleague in the studio there, Dr. Akko, asked a question. Where's the money come from? Of course we know. Of course we know where the money is coming from that is pouring into the Ivory Coast economy, because they want to maintain a hegemony within that region. And the only way that they can do that and use that as a base to see if they can penetrate Mali and these other countries and so on and so forth is to have a base in Ivory Coast. And that's what the French are doing. So the French are using Ivory Coast as a proxy to either destabilize Mali, destabilize Burkina Faso, if they can. I mean, if they can, because the Russians have gone in now, and the Russians are now propping those countries. But if the Russians were not in, I'm telling you as we speak, Burkina Faso will not be where they are today. Mali they would have been toppled. Those governments would have been toppled. So, thanks to the Russians, those governments are being protected. But Ivory Coast is the bad boy of Africa. Look at what was happening today, ECO, when Central Africa, my colleague from Africa, from Nigeria here, will bear the brunt of this. When Nigeria and the rest of a monetary, it was a monetary policy that will eliminate this, in Nigeria have Naira, in Ivory Coast have franc, all these other countries, they have different currencies. What happened? The French manipulated themselves through Ivory Coast and killed that program. So I'm just giving you this point to tell you that what's happening in Ivory Coast is a French tactical move to use Ivory Coast as a proxy to destabilize and continue to have hegemony, not just in West Africa, but also in Central Africa. Now, I'm saying this because that playbook is going to be implemented in Cameroon as we speak. It is the same playbook. Now, let's come back to your question. You asked me a question, should Ivorians be happy that there is economic boom? Sometimes, if you give somebody poison and say, this poison is good enough for you to drink, are you going to say, oh, because French money is coming to Ivory Coast and the economy is booming, we should sell our national patrimony, our hegemony, our heritage to the French in order to have economic boom? I would say no nationalist, no Pan-Africanist will accept that. Because if you have Africans taking care of their own matter, Africans ruling their own countries, this situation would not happen. Because Ivorians are saying that we are being sold an illusion. What happens when the French pull out? They are going to pull out. If you remember the history of Guinea-Bissau, when the French wanted to control that country, and those countries resisted, Guinea-Bissau resisted, what happened? The French left with even a pipe bomb water. They destroyed everything that was in that country before they left. If you go and read the history of that country. So Ivorians are saying, no, the boom that we have right now is fake, because we are being used as proxy for the rest of Central Africa and East Africa. We are being used as pawns in order to control the rest of Central Africa. So Ivorians are saying no. But what are they doing? They have made themselves to be captives to the French division rule, divide and rule. That's what's happening in Ivory Coast right now. They couldn't agree. The same revolutionaries who came together to oust Houphouët-Boigny, the same people are divided between the north. No, Ouattara is in the north. He's our person. We cannot do this. We cannot go against him and so on. And that is the same playbook that is happening even in Cameroon. But the same playbook failed in Burkina Faso, it failed in Mali because the French are no more there. So Africans need to understand what is happening here. The strings are being pulled from outside. Do everything in their capacity to maintain Cameroon under their column. The question is, are Cameroonians going to fall prey to what Ivorians are falling prey as well? We're going to be divided between the north, is that Chiroma and the rest, or is the northeast thing? Now Bulu and the Beti and so on. Oh, our thing is this one. That is where Africans are falling prey to manipulation from the West. If Africans stand as one man, because the suffering that is going to be happening, let's just take the case of Cameroon, because there's a little bit of economic, let's accept that. The reality is that there's a little bit of economic, boom in Ivory Coast. But if there is pain, let's take the case of Cameroon. When the people in the north are feeling pain, the people in the southwest, northwest are feeling pain, the Bulu and the Beti will also be feeling the economic pain. Go to Yaoundé, go to every place in Cameroon. You are going to see that the suffering, the inflation, the pain, the roads, the quagmire is the same everywhere. So people should use their brain and know who's pulling the string. So to answer your question, Ivorians know what is happening, and they're not just looking at the little bread that's happening and crumb that's going on and say, oh yeah, we're having a little bit of economic boom, therefore we should close our eyes and allow the constitution to be trampled upon, allow one person to rule forever, allow this one to discard all the elections and discard all the opposition people and bring his own people. Ivorians are allowing themselves to be manipulated, and therefore the French win. If Cameroonians allow the same thing to happen, of course, the oligarchs in the country are going to win. So that is the answer to my question is, the people are not just looking at the economy. They're looking past the economy. They're looking at Pan-Africanism. They're looking at what's going on in the country and say, do we accept this? Do we sell our soul? Do we sell our country because of this little economic boom? And Ivorians are saying no. But unfortunately, like I said, they are divided. And they cannot fight as one person. And that is where Ouattara is going to continue to impugn on them.
All right. Thank you very much, Doctor. Let's talk with you, Mr. Tulu. We're looking at, just from what Doctor is from saying, should Ivorians look past just the economic boom? Or what do you think should have been the best option for Ivory Coast? Because at this point in time, do we still believe Ouattara should have respected the aspects of democracy handing power to someone else, or should we focus on the aspect of the economic boom that Ivory Coast has witnessed since 2011?
Thank you so much for that question. So logically, I would say as individuals, we should not look at just the short-term benefits we are going to get from a program or a policy, but also the long-term effects. Because in the short term, you may have that boom, things may be right. But when you look at it, the ripple effect over time, you begin to see possible challenges in future. So taking the case of Ivory Coast, for instance, the constitutional amendments in 2016 really set them back from a political perspective, even in terms of governance. The age cap on the president before then was 75 to be an elected president in Cote d'Ivoire. The age cap was 75, but Alison Ouattara at the time removed that so that I could run till today. And one of the panelists asked the question earlier, what sort of future can an 83-year-old man prefer? We are moving into the world of artificial intelligence, robotics, technology is being driven across the world. Can an 83-year-old man who should be preparing for the great beyond really help out in that area? Now we should be looking at fresh ideas, younger politicians, people coming in. But because of the sit down tight mentality that politicians within Africa has, they are in the challenge they are today. So you have a president who will most likely win the election because incumbents mostly win across Africa anyway. So that would mean he's there for another 5 years till 88. What gives you the assurance that he would not alter the constitution again to give himself another 5, 10 years in power, even if he's there? So my conclusion is that the Ivorians cannot just look at the economic boom they are experiencing today and forget about the political repercussions of that for the time in future. I mean, so Alison Ouattara may be doing well today in terms of the economy, maybe because, well, he's getting funding from the French government. But in future, if the president of France changes and the new party in power, or the new individual in power, does not align with the current administration, what's the future for them? What would happen subsequently? So these are questions they need to ask themselves. I think generally they need to look inwards. Who is the best candidate for us? Who can do this job? And when I look at the mix of candidates contesting for election, haven't weakened the major players. That's Patrick Thiem, if I remember his name correctly, and Laurent Gbagbo. The other aspirants are not as strong. So even within the Ivorian political system, maybe they need to build more leaders who are well aggressive, idealistic, and can push the country forward. Because as it is, they should not close their eye on just the economic benefits and the country continue to run the way it is. There needs to be enforcement of the rule of law. Like I mentioned earlier, democracy does not only mean you are voting for or you are voting an election. You need to look at the rule of law as well. How are the rights of people being protected? How are the courts behaving? Are they protecting everyone, regardless of status and the likes? Is there some sort of accountability in government? Because clearly today, accountability is mostly absent within the African continent when you look at Cote d'Ivoire and Cameroon. Because if the president was accountable, having said the last time that he would not run again, he dare not run this time. But because there is the absence of that, that is why they have this problem. And overall, I think strong institutions need to be built across these countries to ensure that no ruler, no leader dare come and try to alter things. One of the panelists in the studio mentioned the case of Japan. Japan has strong institutions today, so no individual who he is can come and change the constitution to benefit himself or herself. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tulu. We appreciate that very clearly, and we got you. We'll talk with you, Mr. Ndium Emmanuel, who is a civil society activist. We'll look at the situation in Ivory Coast. What do you think the long-term effect of this will be on Ivory Coast? We're looking at 5 years from now, because we're sure Ouattara is going to win the elections, just like we understand will happen in the situation in most former French former French colonies now. When he takes power for this fourth term, definitely he'll be 85 or 80. That's 88 when he finally leaves power. He's at 83 at the moment.
Who even told you that at 83 he will be willing to leave power? Well,
now he's 83 when his fourth term
who
expires.
told you that 87 he will be ready to leave power? However, we have seen 93 old crooks still in Africa, struggling to stand, who cannot walk themselves out of their sitting rooms. So who told you that? I have an impression that the more you age in Africa, the more energetic you become in power.
Now, we've seen many believing that it's more wisdom
and longevity. Okay, like somebody said somewhere. You see, you are asking a question, the effects in the long term, and I will answer you squarely. The effects will be instability, more instability. I will explain why. Listen, the fact that sit-tight squirrels in Africa have their ways of sitting very tight on the presidential palaces is not because the citizens are very happy about it. You need to understand that African military in most countries have also been zombified to glorify these sit-tight squirrels. Because in most of these countries, all this is done with the aid of the military. Even at the time, we know that in most of those countries, when at the ballot box, the military votes against the incumbent. But when it comes to fighting to maintain them in power, in the open, they fight to maintain them. So what am I saying that there will be instability in the long term? A country might have achieved a desirable level of growth economically, but the social and the political aspects of a country counts. There is nowhere in the world where a country has been considered more successful because it is economically booming and then politically falling or socially falling. Remember, when you take off the main key contenders that were supposed to go in for the elections, each politician or each contender has its following and their aspirations. Once you kick A with his people, you have kicked A with their aspiration. And whatsoever you are going to present to them as a long-sitting president will be a sort of provocation. They will feel like it doesn't represent their aspirations. And what often develops is that in such a case, you are a president by caricature, but by virtue, the citizens know that you are not their president. In a lot of African countries, the citizens know that their presidents are merely pictures or photos put in front of them. But in terms of administrative value and management, they know that these are not our presidents. And that is why you discover that I have always loved to look at the way Bouteflika was kicked out in Algeria, Hosni Mubarak, and then Ben Ali. You see Samuel Doe, who was happily being paraded the street. You see, this kind of people, when you look at them very well, you discover that when they go for the first mandate, the population can support it. Second mandate, they are wearing out. Third mandate, it is pent-up anger. And when it is already at the level of pent-up anger, the population has nothing to do than to rally, and when they are already, their backs are already on the walls, they have to come back. And when they are coming back, the response is always military. That's where I have a problem with at least 80% of the African military in many countries. They know the truth. They know where to point their guns to, but they point their guns at the innocent citizens. They will tell you the real democracy is in the ballot. Okay. The people will go out massively and vote. When they win you in the ballot, you pick up guns against them. What is going on in Côte d'Ivoire today? I will tell you that the aftermath will not be as happy as what people are thinking. Because the Ivorians have come of age. They have traveled across the board. They know how leadership exists or obtains in other countries of the world. Just like Cameroonian. Where you see today, Cameroonian diaspora is one of the most hated by their own government. Simply because the Cameroonian diaspora, just like that of Côte d'Ivoire, Namibia, Burkina Faso, Mali, whoever in Africa, they have been to countries where there is management, the government of accountability, government of credibility, government of communication. All these facets of administration are lacking in Africa. They are lacking in Côte d'Ivoire. Because remember, this man who has successfully eliminated all his contenders, and today, by midnight today, him and his supporters will announce that he has won. And that nobody else should also announce or dare to say or to even murmur that I won even in one polling station. That is the democracy we have in Africa. And I'm thinking that youths have come of age to disgrace this old man by fashioning a new way of democracy. I don't even know how to say it because I am, first of all, emotionally destabilized. Because when I see what is happening in Côte d'Ivoire and what is about to happen in Cameroon, that Let me tell you, when you look at such leaders, if you look at the budget that the Ivorians have voted for this election, and the budget that has been voted to protect one man after this election, it is disheartening. Just like the case of Cameroon, notwithstanding. You protect one man at the expense of millions of people. What is Ouattara going to give to Ivory Coast in their mandate is 4 years, right?
5 years.
5 years. In the next 5 years, that he could not give in the last 15 years, Luis. If it is not a spiritual problem that Africa is going through,
Now,
if it is not that we have leaders who have signed a spiritual pact of destruction with the devil to destroy their own nations before leaving, what is happening that all of them are occultic leaders? What is happening that somebody is in power for 15 years? We are even told 15 years is too small. What about those who have been there for half a century? They don't deliver, yet they kill their citizens. We can even credit Ouattara because the root system there can be appreciated. The water system can be appreciated. As of now, at least, electricity distribution can be at least. The network sustainability can at least be appreciated for now. What about those other people? Now, you have given all of that. We appreciate you, Papa. Leave. Let another person come in. Like my brother from Nigeria says, democracy is not all in the ballot. Democracy also means leave when it is time to leave. Democracy also means give opportunity for the younger generation to experiment. Democracy also means live and become an advisor. That's democracy. Democracy does not only mean that you go and stuff ballot box in the night. You come in the morning, you get people arrested because they see you have fraud an election. And that's exactly what is going to be happening in Côte d'Ivoire maybe after tomorrow. Because when you see these old people that have sold their consciences, they are dining with the devil, the key to their heart is owned by the devil, and so they don't have conscience, they don't have human feeling any longer. So we are saying that African youth needs to rise up. Sometime 3 years ago, I bought the ideas of Dr. Ako on this same platform when we talked about African Solidarity Pact, which could at least limit this kind of occultic governance where one person thinks a country belongs to him and that the presidency has become his father's ancestral stone where he must live and die there. Who does that? Even the people whom we are claiming that we copied democracy from them, they don't do that. If that was the case, I think Emmanuel Macron will have every way to manipulate the instruments of France now and come again. When it was time for Donald Trump to leave, he left before ever coming back. Obama left, but he had all the means to manipulate. This is what, before you take the microphone, I am citing all this Western and America to say that what my brother said a while ago, if we cannot empower African institutions to be above individuals, then we are doomed. If we have institutions that are manned by the family members of certain individuals, the tribes member of certain individuals, where the court, the military, everything belongs to certain individuals, then we are finished.
All right. Thank you.
We are finished.
Thank you, Mr. Jimmy Manuel. We got to that clearly. You're talking about institutions. Africa needs those institutions. Dr. Ako Jonako, do you think Africa lacks those institutions? When we look at the country like Cameroon, Cameroon has all of the good laws, but we still have situations like this coming up. We still have leaders who change the constitutions to favor them. Does it mean what type of institutions do we need, if not the laws, the constitutions? What else do we need?
Yeah, when we talk of institution, we don't mean the absence of institution, we mean of stronger institutions.
Now,
that's what, let me tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Donald Trump in I believe the last mandate was 2016, Mark?
Yeah.
Yes, 2016. He said he will not leave. Trump said he's not leaving. Nobody argued with him. I want to get you to where we mean stronger institutions. the change of power was programmed for the 20th of January. Nobody consulted him on how the agenda of that day looks like. He was simply informed 1 week to that he should start taking his things out of the White House. Now, when we talk of stronger institutions, we don't link institution with tribalism, nepotism, and a lot of what we see in Africa, where the President of the Republic appoints his brother as the Chief Judge at the Supreme Court, where the President of the Republic appoints his own classmate as the Minister of Justice, where the President of the Republic appoints the Chief Security Officer, Army staff must be his village person, where the President of the Republic has the mandate to dismiss, credit, and appoint magistrates. This is what we mean. An institution built from instruments which in one part will have to do with the legality of that particular nation. That concours or competitive exams don't depend on the force of the people, but on the force and the merits standards set up by instrument. That those who become agents of the state are not looked by where they come from, but by the standards they have portrayed that they can lead. When you look at the institution in Cote d'Ivoire now, it is equally meaning that in the next few days, if Ouattara is installed as the new president for the next 5 years, he's going to be there for the next 20 years. A son he gave birth 15 years ago might have become a major. He might equally be occupying the protocol office of the presidency. The wife, who came in from where we don't know, might become the advisor at the presidency. And before you know it, all the members of his family become members of government. And they will still tell you, some people will tell you in Cameroon that no law forbids that. Can you imagine that? That is a weakness in institution. There are countries in the world where a brother cannot occupy a top position once the brother is the president of the republic. These are the issues we talk of. Balance in power, meaning the chief judge must not be related to the president. The minister of economic and social council must not be related to Mr. President, where the chief executive officer or the member, speaker of the house, need not have any relationship with the president of the republic, which means somewhere we go with the laws of Montesquieu, that there must be a need for power separation. Imagine the Cameroon Senate. 70 members are voted by a group we call Big Electorate, the councillors, who are first of all members of the ruling party. Then again, 30 are appointed by the President of the Republic, meaning the President, who is an executive officer, becomes an appointee of legislative organ. What results do you intend? In my dialect, I don't know how we can put it, but that when those who carry water upstream, we mean the elderly ones, because always in our villages, the younger ones will bathe down the stream, and the big people are allowed to bathe up. If you dirty that water up, what do you think the generation behind will carry? Will simply carry mud, deaths. This is what is happening in Africa, and again, I mean, Francophone Africa. What many don't know, a recent study even conducted in Ivory Coast indicates that a lot of Ivorians are have anti-French feelings. A lot of Ivorians, bloggers, and influencers are now against the French because of this melange and mix up in Ivorian politics. The fact that we believe you were there, we speak the French language, does not mean that Ivorians don't have their independence again to talk or vote leaders. If Ouattara is doing what he's doing, there is the hand of the French. And what beats my imagination is how Africans, as old as he is, we saw in 2018, President Paul Biya, who could not offer press conferences in Cameroon, went to France to deposit the resolution of the major national dialogue. And it is in France he had time to offer a press conference. I even asked whether Africans have press rooms in their presidencies, because our president has 3 days of the 365 days in a year that Cameroonians are allowed to see him. No, I'm talking of the 31st. We're talking of 20th May. and 10 February.
Only the privilege see him on the 31st, so,
So-
you are not adding there.
So one of the things which we have to talk here, when you have stronger institutions, like it is in many advanced democracy, every blessed day when there's a national issue, the president talks to the people. The journalists are right there. You get to Washington, D.C. at the gates of the White House. They don't even wait you to pass. As Trump is leaving his car to get into a helicopter, going to Azerbaijan, journalists are already asking questions. Mr. President, what is going to happen in Azerbaijan? What is happening in Israel?
And he has the energy to also
To answer quietly.
No,
If he doesn't talk to the people physically because of no time, he drops it on his social media handle. And the Americans are reading.
In Cameroon, we have ministers.
No, it's not a matter of minister. Who is the minister of state duty in terms of communication now in Cameroon? Since you have minister for communication. Who is the person now?
No,
Because presently, I am confused between the minister of territorial administration and the minister of communication. Honestly.
no, the
This
minister-
one, no, this
the
one we're
minister
talking,
of
we're talking about
Administration,
institutions.
He communicates
No, I'm telling you that we are talking about
within
institutions.
his ministry.
We are talking about institutions. So he's a communicator for his ministry. In that ministry, there's a communicator agent. Every ministry in Cameroon has a communication department. And that is why we think if we get on with institutions, people will know what they are supposed to do. Others will know what they are not supposed to do.
the do's and don'ts.
Now, we think on the basis of power and the relationship you have with the President of the Republic, somebody even takes decision in the place of the Prime Minister. You saw the Prime Minister refusing nothing being built in Kribi, and few days after they were putting the foundation stone. For somebody we call head of government,
All right.
where have you seen a head of government being used as a boy, meaning they send him only in areas where he is not, there's no interest. All this time during politics and campaign, Prime Minister was Northwest and Southwest, since he's a son from that area. Then all the promise, if I count the projects, there are about 22 projects the Prime Minister launched within 3 weeks in Northwest and Southwest. And now that we are talking, none is going on. That's what I'm talking about institutions. If it is a duty of institutions, institutions have a mandate to report and conduct reasonable exercises, inform the citizens, and make sure that what is said is what is done. Not when people mix up within the same circle, and then later you find people going with heavy head. You will see after these elections, a lot of those who have made a propaganda will go silent as if water does not run again around their corners. Because all what they said was empty propaganda, and they knew it from the beginning. We need stronger institutions so that those things which are said, if they are not done, you are called upon to account.
All right, Doctor.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just believe, I'm not telling you, it is the age for some of us to be leaders of this country. If you take Dr. Ako as the Prime Minister of this Cameroon, I believe even the President will have a problem with Article 6. The President of the Republic shall appoint on the proposal of the Prime Minister. You appoint me first, I form my government, then send it to you, and then you validate. This is what it means stronger institutions. If you bring anything which is not part of me, I reject it too. That's what you see happening in France. When you don't have majority in parliament, you must have what we call a shared government. And the person with majority in government should have the position of the Prime Minister first. But the president of minority keeps on appointing the Prime Minister from the minority group. That's why the French people, you see them dancing these days like, I don't know, mushrooms that did not grow well or grew up and met high sun. So that's why the Prime Ministers are collapsing every time. The basis and the role of stronger institutions.
All right, Doctor.
When they are not strong, the state becomes just a joke. And one person we call a puppet answers on those who put them in power.
All right. Thank you, Doctor. Professor Anthony, the lack of strong institutions in most African countries, let's just say in most French-speaking African nations, where do you think the problem is coming from? Do you think it's coming from the people not holding their leaders to account, or do you think the wrong leaders are always put in place? Where is the issues coming from?
We can't actually put it on the people because they inherited it. The colonial powers that left most of these French-speaking countries, we are talking now of the French, instituted a system of rule that focused on persons, not institutions, in African nations. Bet me what they practice in France is different from what they brought into Africa. Why? Because the intention was you look at us. The people were to look at them. And when they were leaving, that's what we call neocolonialism. They recrafted themselves in the few whom they took and trained and sent back to represent them back here at home. So when they came, they have, that's why if you look, for example, we have the Enam. Enam has a style of training where they train you to look at the person who is coming before you as the administrator. And that's why the administrator talks to you as if he's talking to a slave. That's why in most of these nations, those whom you call DOs and SDOs, or as a Frenchman calls it, sous-préfet, they feel like they are tax masters. Because, look at it, it is not the institution where he is coming from, or might be which he leads, that is important. It's him as an individual. And that's why when he talks as if he is the authority, not what covers him. And so with this inheritance that we received from the French, it becomes very, very practical that you do not expect that the people who had been for a long period of time brainwashed, not only brainwashed, intimidated, suppressed, then molded in a particular lifestyle, should just get up and change. And the moment you try, I want to show you this from the French, the moment you raise up your head to want to say, okay, I want to talk against the individuals, you know what happens? They use intimidations. Let's look at all those who fought for the independence of Cameroon, for example. They were labeled by the French as what? Terrorists. Beginning with Omniobert, he was a terrorist according to the French. The Wangis were, Ernest Wangi was killed, considered as an enemy of the state. Name all those mummies. They were murdered, considered as terrorists, enemies of the state. You go around, that is the place rule, the play style in all the French-speaking nations. They establish a system where the institutions are weak, but the individuals are supposed to be the focus. Let's be sincere. As Cameroonians, or maybe as IVORIANS, you want to look at the issue of how did we get to this place? Is it because we are weak? No, I don't think that the people are weak. Like I said, they had been brainwashed. They had lived in fear and suppression for a long period of time. And because of the fear and suppression, they get to live the consequences of what they inherited. So, having been in an independent Cameroon, an independent Ivory Coast for a length of time, you are looking around, you see the way your neighbors handle issues. You look abroad, if you have gone and schooled out of Africa, you see the way they handle their own democracy. When you come back to Cameroon, you come back to Ivory Coast, you start looking at it, you feel like these people are not doing things the right way, and you want to raise your voice to talk. You start feeling like, okay, this is not the right way. These people have instituted personality cults instead of strengthening institutions. The moment you want to raise up your voice, you'll be cracked down. You'll be intimidated and dragged up and locked up in one cell somewhere or in a prison, where you end up might be accepting what they want from you. That is the situation in which Africans in French-speaking nations have suffered from. That is the French style that was inherited and which has not been discarded. It is maintained, it is used on African people now by Africans in their own country. And so that is where we have a serious problem, in that you might ask a Nigerian or maybe an Anglophone in Cameroon why he feels dissatisfied with the whole thing, he'll tell you, this is not the way I grew up. He grew up with the opportunity to express himself. He had the right to express himself. But with the French, you do not have the right to express yourself. You speak as they told you to speak. You don't speak your own ideas. So your opinion should not count. And it shocked me more in situations where, for example, in Cameroon, we have individuals who are supposed to have the Anglophone perspective of issues and reflect that Anglophone culture and value. But you know what? There seems to have been grounded in the French system to an extent where they too have become tyrants. And even worse than the Francophone leaders. And so we have a problem. I will not want to blame it on the people because they need education. Africans, French-speaking Africans needs to be educated. I think that is what happened in Nigeria, in Senegal. Senegalese had been educated for years. If you saw the results that came out in the last presidential election and the reaction of the people, it came as a result of education, patriotic education that was given to the people. They gave them a democratic education that permitted them to get to where they got to and reacted the way they reacted. And it was very fair to have seen the Constitutional Council ruling against the president's decree because of the pressure of the people. I'm sure that that will not happen in a country like Cameroon. I'm sure that will not happen in a country like Ivory Coast. Why? Because the people have not been educated enough to be able to understand that it is their democratic responsibility and right to protest. Right. Which is something that here, even though it is constitutional, it is a problem. It is a problem. Why? Because there is a law. I want to use Cameroon. There's a law that was passed in 2012 about terrorism law, which if you 2014 years, which if you dare step out to protest, that's the law they use against you. That's the law they use against you. That's why people who step out to protest during electoral issues like this, they are rather sent to the military court to handle civilian issues. And it is very terrible for a developing economy, for a so-called developing democracy. And sincerely, we have a problem. And I think that those who are leading us, they do not know that there's going to actually be a future. They think everything is just going to stand still and wait. No, but the people are learning. And as long as they are learning from others, it is but normal that a time will come when you have pushed somebody right to the wall, the person will react. That's the way it is. It has always been like that.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Mark and Tony. Let's talk with you, Dr. Elijah Nwoko. The outcome of Ivory Coast presidential election will definitely resemble what we are seeing in Cameroon. And we'll talk about institutions. We can look at those who are loyal to those leaders who have been in power for quite so long. OUATTARA has been in power for 15 years. We'll be talking about Cameroon so soon, and Cameroon president has been in power for 43 years. He has those who are very loyal to him, and somehow those who are loyal to him are the ones certainly pulling the strings. We'll talk about institutions and those who are supposed to, react, or those who are supposed to uphold these principles. They are
criminals to him.
Well, they are loyal to him, doctor, because they benefit from the system, which of course is in place, and definitely they don't want such changes to occur because it's not going to be to their interest. Dr. Elijah, what's your take on this?
Louis, let me just come back to a couple of things that my colleagues in the studio have already talked about. And it's very, very important for us to draw these parallels between what's happening in Ivory Coast and what's happening in Cameroon. I said right from the beginning that Ivory Coast is not new to this kind of a thing. And what you see in Cameroon and Ivory Coast is a regression of democracy. It is not new. It's a regression of democracy. Take Cameroon, for example. Take from 1992 to today. You would see that Cameroon has gradually regressed. There was draconian measures that were taken in 1992 and so on, those elections and so on. But you still saw that the UNDP had, because the SDF boycotted the election, the UNDP had a sizable chunk of, members of parliament and so on and so forth. Then you go to 2018, it started regressing. Then you have to now. So democracy is regressing, and Cameroonians or Ivorians are part of it. I'm going to tell you why I say so. If my colleague in the studio have mentioned Senegal, for example. The Senegalese were in the same situation. Macky Sall was already thinking of changing a third term. Just that plan, rumors, gesticulation of changing a third term, what happened? The Senegalese went to the streets. They protested in their numbers. It is the same French playbook that was happening in Senegal. It is the same thing that's happening in Cameroon, and it's the same thing that's happening in Côte d'Ivoire. But we see a different result that happened in Senegal. Why? The Senegalese did not distinguish between the East and West and North and South. I keep repeating this because this is the error that Cameroonians and Ivorians are making. Yes, the government is going to arrest people and this, but you're not going to arrest 30 million people and put them in jail. The Ivorians took to the street, and when they took to the streets, it was all for one and one for all. They resisted the attempt to change the constitution. But what do you see in Ivory Coast? When Ouattara came to power, and he said he was not going to change these, and people were rejoicing, he's not going to, rule more than 2 terms and whatever it is. When he changed the constitution, what happened? He had fragmented the population of Ivory Coast into North and South using the French playbook, and he was telling the Nordists and said, this is our thing. It's, if we do this, the people in the South are going to take power, and then we in the North, we are going to suffer. So let's protect our brother. Let's protect this. And Ivorians bought into that lie. Those from the North, they bought into that lie. I'm coming to answer your question. That's why I'm making this background. They bought into that lie, and the few Ivorians that went to the street to protest were people from the South, the Northeast. Those from the North, where Ouattara comes from, did not. So you have a fragmented populace that could not contain what Ouattara did. You go to Senegal, it was different. Look at what just happened. I can't remember even Mauritania or Mauritius, that their president had been driven out of power. There was no difference between the East and the West or North and South. The people said, we do not want this president. And they drove him out of power. The military joined together and they took him out of power. A military leader has taken over power. So if you talk about those who are protecting him or those who are benefiting, it is the few oligarchs who have now used that to institute, number one, tribalism, and say the North and the South, they are antagonistic, we are fighting against each other. Or the Northwest, in the case of Cameroon, Northwest, or maybe Bamileke people against the Bulu and Beti, and then the Northeast, and so on, they are fighting against each other, which is not true. I said it from the beginning, I will say it again. The French playbook is divide and rule. But at the end of the day, the pain and the suffering of all the regions remain the same. There is no difference. Some of you have not gone to the South. If you go to the South and see the suffering that's happening there, those people are suffering the same thing that people in the Littoral province are suffering. But those in power will use a tactic to make them believe that people from one region or other, they are fighting you. That's the mentality that we as Africans need to change. That those in power are using us against one another, because they want to maintain their interest. They want to maintain what they gain. It is not because they protect the people of that region or they want to do things that favor the people of that region. They are protecting their interest. So Cameroon, as we speak, is a failed state. And that failed state, my colleagues in the studio have already talked about the institutions that do not work. Those institutions do not work because the state is a failed state. When you have members of government using or military on civilians, when you have civilians being tried in military courts, that tell you that that country does not have the institutions that are supposed to function to try civilians in civilian courts. And for more to that, you're asking a question about, oh, are these people protecting, the president and so on? No, they're protecting their interests. All these people are coming out with communicate here and there, and so you think it's because they're protecting the president? The president himself may held hostage. They are protecting their interests and not anybody's interest. So whatever they're trying to do there and say, oh no, let's respect the Constitution. Why the fear? If you go to elections, if elections are free and fair, there should be no fear and intimidation, because whoever comes the winner will be declared the winner. But the reason that these countries, whether you talk about Cameroon or Ivory Coast, they're using intimidation, arrest, and torture and so on, is because they know that they cannot face the people. And if the people realize that these people are weak, they are weak. They're only using the military to intimidate you. If you come together as one person and resist, I am telling you, there is no authority in the world, even in a communist country, that can withstand the will of the people. When the people are united to say, we resist this system, there is no country in the world that can overcome the will of the people. That is why I keep harping on this issue that Africans, Cote d'Ivoire, Ivorians, Cameroonians, or whatever country, use Senegal as an example. What happened in Senegal is that the powers that be were trying to use the same playbook that is being used in Ivory Coast and Cameroon, but the people were wise. I said, no, these people want to use us against us. They want to divide the people so that they remain in power. The East realized that, the West realized that, the North realized that, the South realized that. They came together and resisted. And that's why Senegal is free today. So I am calling on the conscience of Ivorians, on the conscience of Cameroonians, to know that when these people continue to use divide and rule, the country suffers. Even those who believe or think that it is their thing, it is our brother, it is our sister, it is our position, it is our this. At the end of the day, you are going to suffer the same consequences like the other person who is trying to fight. So this is the education. In my colleague in the studio talked about education. This is what we need to get into our conscience, those of us who are from these countries, to understand that these people are using tactics to keep us where we are. Now, coming back to your question, you ask yourself the question, are these people behaving because these people are asking them, protecting them and giving them something? I do not see what the government is giving to anybody. They are protecting their family. I don't see what the government or those are coming, my colleague talked about the prime minister in the case of Cameroon was sent to all these people, make promises and so on. We see those promises, the following day, nothing happens. They will tell you that they are constructing these roads. The following day, they'll bring caterpillars and so on. The following week, the caterpillars are all gone. We see the prime minister of Cameroon being humiliated. He's telling people that nothing is going to happen. Oh, the Sonora is going to be rebuilt and so on. There's no Sonora that's happening. The following day, we saw the opposite of that. We see that these people are being used. Even they themselves are being used. They do not understand what's happening to them. So Ivorians and Cameroonians need to understand that if we allow ourselves to be divided, to fight against each other, to use ethnic, tribal, anyone is paying allegiance. And that's one of the problems with democracy in Africa. We pay allegiance to our tribe. We don't pay allegiance to democracy. We don't look at who is going to do what, the right thing. We look at, does this person come from my tribe? Does it come from my region? Does it come from my province? If we allow ourselves to be manipulated like that, I am telling you, even the next century will be the same place, talking about the same thing on this studio and talking about the elections that are being rigged and so on, because we have allowed ourselves to be manipulated. I want to keep driving home this point because that is the only thing I'm telling you, gentlemen. That's the only thing that's going to save this country. Dictators are not defeated at the ballot box. It's never happened anywhere in the world. Dictators are not defeated at the ballot box. They are not, because they hold the knife on the arm. If you look at the case of Cameroon, I know we're going to talk about Cameroon, but I just use that as an example. Who are the members of ELECAM? CPDM. Who control territorial administration? CPDM. Constitutional Council, CPDM. President, CPDM. Ministers, CPDM. DO, CPDM. Senior divisional officer, CPDM. Subdivisional officer, CPDM. Do you expect these people to rule against the hand that feeds them? Of course not. So if Cameroonians know this, if Ivorians know this, it is better for us as these two countries to say, we need to understand that we are being used as pawns by these people to fight one another. If we are united, I'm telling you, these people cannot overcome the will of the people. It has never happened in any country that if people are united, even against a military leader, that military leader will fall. That is the message I keep sending to these two countries.
Mr. Juma Manuel, I think we're going to conclude the topic on Ivory Coast with you. And the aspect of leaders coming to power with a lot of ambitions and a bit of, positive energy to impact their country. We saw Ouattara coming to power with the intention of, not going this far and not having these negative aspects affiliated to him. What changed? Why do leaders change after taking power?
I'm sure somebody already said here that absolute power corrupts.
Absolutely.
And again, we need to understand that when these people come to power, they commit a lot of crimes. The first factor that is making them to be afraid to leave power is because of the atrocities they must have committed. They are afraid that if they leave, the predecessors may come after them. So, in fact, when they are coming to power, they give us a lot of lofty promises. When they take the first maybe mandate, the first term in office, to satisfy their friends and their militants. And before you know it, there is nothing they can again offer. When they cannot offer something, they know that fear is already chasing them. They need to stay there and die there. Now when we look at what happened with Mohamed Morsi in Egypt, at a point where he was even almost dying, he refused to leave power. He was insisting to die in office. But I was very happy that the Egyptians did not have pity on him. They had to be taking him to the hospital. When he gets better, they take him to prison cell, and from the prison cell back to the hospital until he died. I think we need to be more severe with sit-tight leaders. When we have an opportunity to deal with one, we deal with that one squarely, so that others should be learning. So that others should know that as it's leaving this door, next door, it is my turn. And maybe they will start adjusting. Because when we start caressing them, even signing deals, that no, you have to leave power so that I will not punish you, just negotiate and leave power. We give them the audacity to think that they can hang up to power and fight back. So when one falls in our time, we have to deal with them squarely. You cannot come to a nation, you have a nation of more than 30-something, 38 million citizens. You, an individual, you are working over their fortunes, over their futures. You mortgage their future. You keep borrowing. You borrow to embezzle. You borrow to fight citizens. It is not done. So I think it's something sometimes it really takes us courage to even comment on it again. Because it's something that one can go out of control. It's paining. Okay. Give the microphone to another person.
All right, Mr. Dium, we got you. Thank you very much. And just remind those of you who are watching, if you want to participate on the program, if you want to comment on the issue of the voting in the Ivory Coast, we will be glad to hear from you. Send us your informations. Get to us by the numbers which will be displayed on your screen. Call us directly on WhatsApp. We shall get your opinion. And right away, let's talk on the aspect of Cameroon. how to stabilize the climate amidst rising anxiety and election violence in Cameroon, which of course remains our greatest concern here. Doctor, Cameroonians are waiting the outcome of the October 12th presidential elections, which it's left now for the Constitutional Council to decide who actually has won. But we've seen provisional results from the Vote Counting Commission, which suggests that President Paul Biya won the elections with more than 50%. Meanwhile, Issa Chuma Bakari, on the other hand, claims he's won based on the return reports which he says his party was able to get after the elections. We're looking at the atmosphere since the election till today. What's been your observation, and what do you think is igniting the chaos which we're observing in Cameroon at the moment?
Thank you that we are now talking Cameroon and a lot of issues that were left unsaid. I want equally to inform you that the Constitutional Council is not deciding. The Constitutional Council is like a journalist. It's about to read what he was given. And they have, in fact, what they have in front of them is not of their mandate to change what comes or came from the fields. That is a result from the National Vote Counting Commission and what ELECAM and its members did in the field. But the controversies and the tension that is walloping and swallowing Cameroonians these days is what beats a lot of analysts and observers' imagination. That you have won an elections like we see in any democratic nation. We expect huge celebrations from the party headquarters to the grassroots level of the various parties that which said they have won and that they won a new mandate for their 93 years old man. And what some of us are witnessing is the military police being used to chase civilians. Others have been arrested, others been intimidated, others have been warned not to do the same thing. And we saw a movement somewhere, the ruling party to organize a march past, but nobody chased them away. Nobody even followed them. Nobody has condemned why they organized such a meeting. But I just imagine if such a meeting was organized by Issa Chiruma at the Bepanda neighborhood in Douala, you can already see the consequences coming very far.
I think most of these arrests are done if the peaceful protest turns violent, or maybe. No,
it is not about the violent nature of the peaceful protest. What we talk of the peaceful protest, it is the mandate of security forces to what we say to control any civil march past, every symbol demonstration.
Yeah, from recent videos we've seen from the north, the military has been able to protect the civilians.
So what we are asking here is, does it mean that there are some Cameroonians who are more citizens than others, those who have a right to public manifestations, and that others don't have? But public manifestation is a constitutional right. Cameroon is a member of many international organizations, instruments like the United Nations, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the law against torture. Cameroon has signed and ratified that particular treaty, the International Convention, and we think the government should be held accountable for any excessive force being used on the citizen. If you had won an election, there is no need for military takeover on the streets. There is no need for systemic control and intimidation, because when victory is yours, I insist, we always call for celebration. But if the other party seems or is feeling cheated, he too has a mandate to claim for his victory. There is a question which has been asked several times, and especially now in Africa. They say you have won an election as an opposition party. How do you take power? That question nobody has answered. And that is the answer we are trying to check out in Cameroon. And in the process of checking or finding an answer to it, now we are meeting with security forces and the police or gendarmes who believe that they have a mandate to protect. But several times equally calls have been made for the military to stay apolitical, and that state or political issues should be settled politically. How can we keep on being intimidated for over 65 years and then still claim that the adage or proverb, Cameroon is a state of law, only comes in when it concerns members of the opposition. We have witnessed journalists of the ruling party that have propagated fake news, and they keep on doing the same thing, going scot-free. Nobody warns them. Nobody even intimidates them, but their results are honest. When they publish information, it is the information from the quarters, but it still become like information that was meant for the public. Cameroonians need to be very careful, and I might decide to add my voice with those of other international actors that let the voices of the people speak, and that the vote counting. It is funny that the ruling party wins in the south, and again could not win in the towns. That in the towns they have 200 votes, and in the rural areas they have 15,000 votes. In Bamenda town, they were unable to score 1,000 votes, but they scored 15,000 votes in Indu and 5,000 in Batibo.
And 2,000 in Jenicom.
Good. In the general performance of election, with the statistics that we just got, the littoral region, vote participation was 52%. In the northwest, it was 90%. In the southwest, they were at almost 80%. Well, we know very well that there were no people in those areas. Polling stations were dislocated, relocated in the northwest and the southwest. That is even where we have thousands of votes again, even when people never had means to go to those places where the newly located polling stations were found. There are a lot of ambiguity, which comes again to tell me that the request or the petition deposited by Madame Taimo was supposed to stand. If we are in a democracy, in this particular election that just passed, there is a need to annul the results. And if we cannot annul them, at least annul them in some areas. In the south, in some villages, 241 people registered. 241 people voted. All the 241 people voted for the ruling party. The other parties had 0% everywhere. And the ruling party there scored 100%. In more than 100 towns. That's what happened.
All right.
Meaning even the village people of the opposition candidates, 11 of them, none of them voted in the south. All voted for the ruling party. Even when some polling stations were opened in private homes or in areas we did not know. That's what happened. Polling stations were in areas where we find bush, but people voted there 10,000. It is sad. How do we disgrace the image of a nation in an atmosphere of protecting private gains? Because what happened with those who stole the votes at the level of the grassroots, they did that for their interests. Am I free to talk online? We just spoke about Ivory Coast. You need to see what Nigerians approaches Cameroonians. It is sad that Nigerians are making a mockery of the Cameroonian electoral system, and that where we are might become an insult, presenting yourself somewhere in the world that you are a Cameroonian, and that those who rule you, they were ruled by our ancestors. There is no top government official that is not above 80 years. Meaning it is after 80, like the woman said, that people tend to be more energetic, more intelligent, and that wisdom fooled them, plus experience. Somebody equally wrote that winning election in Cameroon does not only take what? The voting. That it has to do with the experience.
And longevity.
And longevity. And I asked them, where does experience come from? Nobody gets experience out of the office. Experience comes from the office. Whether you need to be a class prefect or you need to be a truck pusher, if you don't hold the truck, you will not know how to manage a pothole. So when you say experience comes or whatsoever, I believe the laxity and I mean the obscurity in a lot of people's brain, it tells us even that some of them too might have been handpicked from the quarters, and that others are still to even go through some literature when it comes to governance, and that we have a mandate to the nation and not the nation to us. That, like I said, when history will be read, it is not what the nation did to you, it's what you did to your nation. Is this the kind of Cameroon with which you construct? A Cameroon where our own children will live by intimidation and fear, because if I declare the right results, I'll be scored out or heated at or intimidated at, and then the person who is giving the right result becomes the enemy. And those who fool the ballot box, we have seen videos everywhere. In a normal democracy, I insist, the elections on the 12th of October was marked by a lot of fraud and cheating. Such areas where without the votes, the Constitutional Council has a mandate to annul those votes. And don't be surprised if they are going to read these results on Monday. Some areas will have registered voters less than number voted. Be very careful. I'm just telling you. We are going to find a situation where those who voted in a village were more than the number of people who registered in that village. And nobody has cared to take care about. Eleka might have done all what they think is correct, but I dare charge you, the president of the Constitutional Council, check those results well. Don't go and read figures before get caught on the web. A lot of those figures will be marked by errors.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Akojon. Prof. Mark-Anthony, we're looking at how do we maintain calm during this period where we've seen the atmosphere is, of course, quite tense. The doctor is talking about the possibility of annulling the elections, and we understand if there was supposed to be any annulment, that call would have come from opposition parties who would have expressed their dissatisfaction. But we instead saw many, or those who deposited, such calls for verification, withdrawing their petitions. Now, we're looking at how to maintain calm. A lot has happened already, and we're looking forward to the result of the election.
You see, we shouldn't forget that Ndamjoya was part of those who tabled of that election, and it was inadmissible. So, if they tell you irreceivable, it means there's no way you have anything to say. And that's what came out from her petition, which means the Constitutional Council doesn't care to check. So even what Dr. Ako is saying that maybe they should check, they will not even have time for the checking. It's just to read.
They already checked before it's
So that notwithstanding, you ask a question on how to stabilize the nation. I want to be sincere in saying this. When there is truth and justice, stability is maintained. There are not two ways to have peace. I've heard a lot of messages preached today about peace everywhere. Don't forget, Cameroonians are peace-loving people. We all love peace. If not, we would not have been here. I want to remind you, in 1982, Ijo was 58 years when he handed power to Mr. Biya, the president of the outgoing president. Listen, just imagine the first president at the age of 58 peacefully handed power. There was no, did you hear that? There was nothing. In fact, nobody was arrested and locked up anywhere because of the handing of power. People were celebrating on the streets that year. So, what is happening today? We just came out from an election. There were situations, fraud, that were on video. In fact, there are different fraud situations on video. On video. Nobody is speaking against it. There are individuals who are supposed to be speaking peace, whom are being used today to destabilize the nation. In what way? They keep on saying, in fact, they go to social media, they take the names of individuals, they say terrible kinds of things. They even go ahead to go on TV stations and read elections and tell you this is the winner. But I've not heard anybody send for their arrest.
Condemning them.
They do not even condemn them. In that case, like the Frenchman say, deux mesures, you say un mesure, deux poids, deux mesures. Deux poids, deux mesures. You realize that you cannot treat a situation because it favors you differently, and then when it does not favor you, treat it differently. At the end of the day, you cannot have peace. So we want a situation where the nation remains stable. I think if we need stability and a stable climate, we would not have been here right now. We would not have been saying all these things, because I believe that everybody knows what to do that is right to maintain peace and stability in this country. Everyone knows what to do. But if something is going out of hands, I think the fraud situation was supposed to be handled so that people can be appeased for the fraud. There are areas where there were ballot stuffing. They should have handled all those things, but nobody cares about those things. Nobody. Today, I'm hearing insults being traded on social media from one person to the other, intimidation, arrest of people. After that, what? After that, what? Is that the way we want stability? When change. Nobody is against the Constitutional Council rigging the elections. We want the Constitutional Council to rig the elections, proclaim the elections. And you see, we have made a very big mistake in propagating the wrong ideas about the laws in the Electoral Code. The Electoral Code is clear that in Article 113, on the day of elections, at the end of the polls, the chairpersons in the various polling stations have the audacity and capacity to declare or to proclaim the winners in those various polling stations. And the follow-up comes after elections, I say 2 weeks after, or 15 days at most, where the Constitutional Council, that's Article 1, I think 139, comes now to proclaim the winner of the entire result. And if you are somebody who knows how to follow train, you realize that if in your polling station you knew who won, you can get to follow the various polling stations from all the territory and know who won. So there are what we call projections that can be made by individuals based on the compilation of their different polling station results to come up with a winner. That is a projection, not a proclamation. Because there's one official body to do that proclamation, which is the Constitutional Council. So if somebody had maybe made a declaration and said this person won or that person won, in reality, it doesn't change. It doesn't take away the person. That's a right. The person has a right to do that based on that Article 113. So, but we have transformed it and we are using it now for witch hunting. They are using it for witch hunting. If you made such a proclamation, you are going down according to one minister. All right. So it is getting unnecessarily harsh on people and hard and making the climate become tense, which was not supposed to be. The climate, as you wanted it to be stable, was supposed to be stable. Even with such declarations, nothing was supposed to change. But when you start seeing the deployment of military, gendarmes, police everywhere, it creates a tense atmosphere. It is not needful. We don't need that. Consider it that, for example, we are sitting and we are talking here. If I have to talk freely, then you send military people to come in, I will not be able to talk. I'll start feeling tense. And that's the situation. When people are, for example, we know very well that if you say somebody should do a peace demonstration, protest, peaceful protest, it is not accepted nor permitted in Cameroon, even though it is accepted by the law. Why? Because they say you have to declare, but there are protests that cannot be declared. Why I say so is because there are some things that just happen, boom, like that. People are on the street walking and going. They did not plan it. So, in such a situation, I think that the government was supposed to use different strategies on how to calm the temperature, the climate down, then do the right things to permit people to be at peace. But instead of worsening the situation. I think if you can remember, in the Anglophone zone, when the crisis started, there was a situation that was being handled. Then, the moment the leaders came, they started arresting leaders, picking them one by one, locked them up, took them to Kondengi, so whatsoever. The crisis changed. And that, I think, we're supposed to have learned from it. You don't create a situation of panic. When the moment the situation of panic is created, oh yeah, some other people will pick it up and it becomes something different. And that is not what is expected. That's not what we want.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Professor Mark. Let me talk with you, Dr. Elijah. Prof insists on Article 113, of course, which says polling stations are responsible for, proclaiming the results after the vote. But you look at this projecting. Now we look at the aspect of Issa Chiroma, who's gone beyond that. Do you think he has abused the Article 113 as with regards to the different outings he has been making since then till now?
Gentlemen in the studio, I first of all just want to say I commend you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Louis? Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, we can get you, but faintly. The technicians are working on that, Doctor.
Okay, I was saying that I first of all want to commend my colleagues, the gentlemen in the studio, that they have the fortitude to speak their mind or ability to speak their mind in Cameroon under this current political climate. I want to commend all of them who are in the studio being able to speak. Because as we speak, colleagues of ours have been picked up. We know Fabrice Lena has been picked up. Mr. Chamini has been picked up. People in the northern province have been picked up. They are just picking up people everywhere. Just for talking. I have a polling station member in Douala reach out to me when she saw me on Equinox the other day when I was making my call for, a peaceful election to take place. She called me up here. She said, lady, she was a polling station official representing one of the political parties. She called me up here that she's receiving threats if I could help or whatever it is. So I really feel the pain of activists in Cameroon or people who are freely speaking about what is happening in the country. It's a dire situation because Cameroon, as we speak, everything that was building up to this election was building up to proclaim the ruling party as the winner. We all know that. We saw that coming. So there's no pretense that we expected free or fair elections because right from the onset, they say publish the list of electoral lists in polling station. That is what the law say because, like the question you're asking me, the law is very clear. The law is good. Even the Constitution of Cameroon is good, but it is actually the implementation or the observance of that law that is a problem. It's not even the law by itself. The law is very clear. So I really commend those of you in studio able to speak, and I appreciate your ability to speak truth to power. And I want to commend all Cameroonians to speak up. Those of you that are back home, because you are in ground zero, you are in the neck of the fire, and the ability for you to speak is what we all commend all of you here. Some of us who are out here, we can speak, say anything that we want because we are not back home. But those of you are back home and able to speak, I commend all of you. And I pray, honestly pray, that you stay safe and you continue to speak truth to power. Because the reality is that I'm speaking from an objective point of view that Cameroon is a failed state. It's a failed state because why would you be picking polling station officials for simply doing their civic responsibility, which the government itself, elected members elected them and said, all members of political parties are supposed to have representatives at polling station, and after that, they will present their result, like somebody already said publicly and said, at this polling station, this is the result. That's what the law says. These people actually did that, but we realize now that they are being picked up. Why will we be picking up people for actually just doing their going on with their civic responsibility, which you elected them to do. You called them upon to do. Why are they being picked up? So we're saying that this is a country that is showing some sort of a camouflage of a democracy, but it's not a democracy. It has become a military state as we speak right now. Now, in terms of Issa Chiroma, what Issa Chiroma did, let me say it here, as I said in other TV stations. There is no democracy or election in the world where you are not allowed to project results. It's part of, even ELECAM recognizes that you are allowed to project results and say, based on the result that I am having and everything. That's why sometimes in the Western world here, you have TV stations. TV station will be projecting and said it's either the Democratic Party that's winning or the Conservatives are winning, but that does not mean that they are the ones to certify the result. They are projecting what they see coming out from the polls. That is what Issa Chiroma has done. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just because Cameroon is such a military state, everything is militarized, you cannot even follow the same law that the states have come out with. You are following the law, but you are being prosecuted from the law. And like somebody already said, it seems in Cameroon now we have two kinds of citizens. Because you have people who said you cannot go out to the road to protest. But you have members of the political party, those in power, actually going out to march. And they are marching against the same law. So you see Cameroon as we speak right now, we are being made mockery of in the international scene. Cameroon is the only country in the world that you organize election and the result will be proclaimed 2 weeks. What is happening within those 2 weeks? It's an orchestrated fraud machine that has been put in place. That result will be rigged by the senior divisional officers, members of the ELECAM at those regions. Like somebody said, I don't blame, the election committee or the result that they're going to read, because they are being given what has been doctored from the commission that is coming from the regions. You will tell me that election day comes, we all see in videos, results that are coming in videos. Then a few days after that, we see complete different results. The government is taking Cameroonians for fools or what? That nobody, even if you are, whoever you are, you see results that are coming out live on video that somebody has won in this region. A couple of days after that, you see a complete different result being presented to the county commission. What is that? We are being made a mockery. We are a mockery of the whole world, a mockery of democracy, a mockery of a country that we call ourselves Le Continent, a whole mock, even IVORIANS, even with their draconian, what OUATTARA'S done. I'm telling you that elections that will come out from there will be representative of what the people voted, even though the president fragmented electorate and then he's using tribalism and so on. But the election will be representative. He will win. OUATTARA will definitely win. But it will be a little bit of representation of what people voted. But in Cameroon, it's complete opposite. What happens in the polls is completely different from what is announced. So we are having a charade of election in Cameroon. And we know that those who are asking for peace, they are saying peace. Like my colleague on the studio already said, Cameroonians are peace-loving people. And they always want peace. But you are not going to, force down peace down the throat of people because you want peace. You have to create an atmosphere of peace. And I'm telling you the truth, when people are pushed to the wall, that's what I fear in Cameroon. Because right now, Cameroonians are pushed to the wall. And when people are pushed to the wall, just like what happened in the Northwest and Southwest, people in the Northwest and Southwest were demonstrating and asking for a federation and said, let's fix things in this country. The way we came into the union is not the way things are going. Let's see how we can fix things. The government came in with iron-handed hands. And opportunists who call themselves separatists now took over the situation. I am afraid that the same thing might happen in the North and other part of Cameroon. Is that the legacy that President Paul Biya wants to leave for himself? A country that is fragmented between North, South, East, and West. Is that the legacy that we want to leave? Is that the country that we want to live on? So I'm telling those who are in power that Cameroon is at a crossroad right now. And there is very little you are going to do when people's back are pushed to the wall. They will take things into their hands. Nobody is preaching for violence. Nobody is preaching for destruction. But I'm telling you, when people are pushed to the wall, they will take things into their hand. And that is what I fear. And I am calling those in authority. Know what you are yearning for. Alfred Bonyi ruled Ivorians with a iron fist head. But when the time came that Ivorians said enough is enough, they done the consequences, they took the law into their hands, and they drove that power. Where is he now? Members of his government, those who think that they are now gods in Cameroon, they can go on the TV and proclaim that this one be arrested, this one be killed. Be careful. Where are the members of Alfred Bonyi's government? In Mauritius, it was the same thing. Where are in Senegal, it's the same thing. Where are the members of government of Macky Sall? They have all run away. Those who are in power in Cameroon, be careful. You might think that you have the upper hand. You might think that you can smash the people, but the time will come that the people will rise. Even, remember the words of Honorable Weber. The time will come that even if you used whatever means, you are not going to resist the people. So that is what I'm praying for Cameroon, that we do not come to that position. Let those in power beware and make sure that they did not throw Cameroon into flames. That's all I'm going to say.
So, Elijah Ndoku, Mr. Joe Manuel, you're a member of a civil society organization, and the most important thing for, I think, every civil society organization right now is on how to call for peace during this period where tensions are high. And Cameroon being the lifeline for several Central African nations, would not want a chaotic atmosphere, would not want violence, because we know it's not only going to affect Cameroon, but as well the other countries that highly depend on Cameroon.
Well, an elder told me somewhere that you can give an advice to somebody, but you cannot remove your heart and give to the person. Since 2017, we have done our utmost best. We have gone to the field, we have tested the waters, and we have given a feedback to the government. That was our own role, to tell the government that we have only one Cameroon, we love the Cameroon, and it remains our Cameroon. We condemned separatist acts, butchering people. We condemn the government shooting people indiscriminately. We condemn raping, breaking into people's houses. And at one point, we almost became the target as enemies of the state. And on the other hand, Amber called us agents of the government. Blacklegs. They call us blacklegs. So we have been between the deep blue sea and the devil. And what we keep saying is that, like the Bible verse put it, say the truth, and only the truth shall set you free. The government has lied a lot, that I'm not even sure that a ghost will believe in the government of Cameroon. But then what do? We have a country to protect. We have a nation to protect. We shall all pass one day, but our nation shall remain. But what are we doing today to make sure that when we pass on, the other generations see something that we did? This is what I've been saying. We have seen people who openly frauded, and they were proud to say they frauded. The government has not reacted. We saw Elekam polling agents being beaten hands down, and nobody was locked up for beating them, which means that the beating was legitimate. The beating was genuine. That's why the government did not come after anyone. We have seen people hired to destabilize Cameroon on Facebook in the name of journalists, rendering account to the government, setting up other innocent citizens to be picked up in their houses, and all stories being cooked up. I want to think the person who does not want peace in Cameroon as of now is the government. And it is the government because they have not been saying the truth. I wanted to think in the democracy, when Real Madrid is playing against Cotonspor of Garoua, and you are already sure that Real Madrid is going to win, allow the referee to do his job. Don't come as a commentator and you declare who has won. Why is it that in the same nation, you have the powers to declare that your candidate has won, and the other person does not have the power to declare. I want to be very careful here because there is a situation developing. The people in the Anglophone region stood up for a genuine cause and was hijacked by some criminals abroad who call themselves Ambazonians. Today, we are 9 years gone. A military man cannot walk in Bamenda freely, alone. They walk in groups, as I tell you today. They are afraid more than you and I to walk there because they are targets. I am afraid of a situation where the government is going to radicalize the Northerners to come up with an honor idea that La République du Grand Nord. And at that time, the government will have to fight at 3 fronts. And let me tell you, even the Nazis Germany failed because they were attacked from all fronts. No matter how strong you are, you cannot fight and succeed a war at different fronts. The government of Cameroon has the responsibility to protect us, has a responsibility to protect the nation, has the responsibility to protect the institutions by saying just one thing: the law and nothing but the law. If the law warrants that people can predict their victory as per what came out from the ballot box in their polling station, and you, a government minister, can declare, let the both parties declare. And let's wait for the final verdict from the Constitutional Council. And again, you cannot steal from somebody because you have a gun or you have a hammer. You still come to beat down the person without the person reacting. It is not every child that when it is beaten innocently, the child takes it lightly. You may beat at one child today on Monday, and it takes the child 2 weeks to react at the time you are sleeping, and you will not be able to contain it. Let wisdom prevail over force. Let wisdom prevail over power. That some people have said only the state has the legal power to act out of the law, which means the state has the right to arrest everybody. Sometimes in Norwest, the forces of law and order were just killing people, and then they take chavum guns, put on them, and say they were terrorists. And you discover, let me say it before they became adapted to it, and they have learned to resist. Now, know that when you start arresting people, calling them key members of whatsoever, I don't know, because of now, if you ask me why those who have been arrested, I will not be able to place a finger on any reason. And you arrest a father, he has children. The children are gradually becoming radicalized. He has a wife. That wife has a family. He has a family. He has friends. He has organizations that he is treated with. They are gradually being radicalized. Have we not learned lessons enough from Boko Haram? Have we not learned lessons enough, 80 years counting, that where wars usually start is where the wars shall end? Or where wars end is where the wars ought to have started, which is the round table. 43 years, Louis, add 7 years to it. It gives you half a century. That alone is already pain in the hearts of many people. Then you don't find it necessary to appease them. Why not even cancel all the election results and tell Cameroonians to go to the polls once again than want to imprison everybody? How far am I very sure that talking here today I will see my house? God forbid. I am not praying for that. But I am saying that Cameroonians have a right to revindicate what belongs to them. If we are saying that our constitution and the law has become obsolete, let's then dissolve all the institutions and then start back from Christ. Because we have seen what we never expected to see again in 2025. Let President Biya leave power with a legacy that I accepted, that I will lift my power and protect lives than to lose lives while protecting power. Because power was given to him not through the exchange of gun, but was given on the will of confidence. Can you now give it to another person on the will of confidence, Mr. President? And remember, there is no president who has won a Nobel Prize for being a warmonger in the whole world.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Njum. Before I end with you, Dr. Ako, we'll have 5 minutes to get your reactions before we conclude here in the studio. If you're watching us and you want to participate, the number is on your screen. Call us via WhatsApp and let's hear from you. And possibly let's try to connect with those who want to get to us. You're live on the program. Welcome. Can we get your name, where you're calling from, and your reaction?
My name is Ngomo Emelda. I'm calling from Yaoundé. Thank you for calling me back. And I'm happy that I've been watching the program from the beginning. And if I can add to what you have been saying and what is happening in our country and that in Cote d'Ivoire, the problem we have with our leaders is greed. The insatiable quest for power leads to greed. And it's because of this greed that makes our leaders not want to quit power. They change the laws as they want because they have to favor their friends, keep their friends in power, hold the people down, and take whatever it is they're taking from the poor masses. As long as they and their families and friends are okay, they don't care about the masses. Secondly, the reason why they clinch to power is not because they cannot live, but because they have caused a lot of atrocities. They have caused a lot of atrocities. There is blood on their hands. They have killed a lot of people. They have done so many evil things that they know that leaving power, those who will take after them will come after them. Automatically, institutions like the United Nations or whatever, that say they are there to protect human rights. For me, they are not there to protect human rights. They are there to protect their selfish interests. They are not helping us in any way because they are the ones pulling the street from outside. Like, I don't know if Dr. Adbo or Dr. who rightly said. They are the ones pulling the street from outside. So they can fight each other. They can divide and rule for their personal interests. And it's unfortunate that our leaders have not seen that. They are being encouraged by the West because they know that if they leave power, the evil they have done will haunt them. They don't want to go to jail. They don't want to be judged. So automatically, they will do all and everything so they stay in power against the will of the people. They force themselves. Talking about our case, our president is 43 years in power. I was not born when he was in power. He stole from, how do they call it? Led Niger fully in 92. Stole from Maurice Kamto in 2018. Now he wants to steal from how they call it, Isaac Roma. But the truth is that all of us are hurt. And to say the truth, I know that they may come after me. I don't care. I bloody don't care because after all, death is a transition and everybody's going to die someday. If they have to do what they are planning to do, they should be ready to face the masses because me, as a woman, I'm ready to walk in the streets because I'm tired. I'm tired. You go to school, you get back home, you don't have a job, the government is just manipulating people, feeding us with lies upon lies upon lies for several years. So the reason, one of the main reasons why they cling to power is because they know the ills they have committed to the population, to the masses. Is it mismanagement of public funds? Is it killing? Is it jailing for free? No freedom of speech. All of those things. You want to speak. The other one that is called Minister of Body will come after you. In fact, we are terrorized at every level. As English-speaking people, I cannot go to my village. I'm scared. I'm forced to do businesses in places where I don't want, of which if business is done back home, I'm sure people will benefit from it. But I'm scared because you go there, they will say you're coming from La République. I don't know. If the new president is taking power, what we'll be proposing is a complete constitutional reform. Yes. Our constitution needs to be reformed because it's favoring only the Frenchman. I don't know where the Englishman is found. It's like I don't know. It's like we are the road on the river. We are dancing. rumors had it they are proposing the prime ministership to Mr. Issa Chiroma or former minister Issa Chiroma. Okay, when they do that, what becomes of the Anglophone? Since they say we are now a country that we are run, the prime ministership is for the Anglophone. What becomes of us? What becomes of us? They should tell us. If not, they should give us the free state that we are looking for, the autonomy that we are looking for. I can tell you from my heart, I'm tired. You know, they did in 92 and 2018. We walk the street. Crises have to go around. Thank you.
Thank you, Imelda. Thank you for your reaction. And certainly we don't have any call at the moment. Doctor, we're going to conclude with you. You are a leader of a civil society organization, and of course, you have a great role to play, and your message certainly needs to touch Cameroonians, the leaders, as well as those of course, those who are expecting the results, and those who have already proclaimed that they've won the elections. What's your message to Cameroonians?
Yeah, it is again very heavy at times when you talk to people. Like I said, since the country Cameroon is full of lies, when you speak the truth, you become the haunted. And now you have a lot of people chasing you. But we honestly believe that victory this time belongs to the people, and that the state authorities and institutions should guarantee that the victory of the people be restored, and that the people should have the mandate. There is no government in the world above its own very people. Power belongs to the people. Mr. Ndiwum said then that they said power belongs to the state to overcome the law or go above the law. Is a lie. You find such tyrannic proverbs that intends to school or tie up, or how can I call, enslave the mindset of the electorate. So the power that belongs to the people is the power that the people use on the 12th of October. That is the time when people sacrifice their individual liberty for a common leader. And if this is honest, that is what I said, the victory of the people should be given to the people. 43 years of imprisonment, torture, bad roads, poor hospitals, wayward academic institutions, the markets, high cost of living. It is really pitiful. But I believe that in 2025, Cameroonians spoke to one another. I have never seen people vote like I saw in Douala. We assisted and went around and saw the urge of how the youths, whom we thought were more always on Facebook, WhatsApp, and social media, went and casted their votes. And they had one code. If you weren't voting, you will know that campaign was even carried out by some youths at the door of entering to vote. Because some people keep recalling to you that we have one color. That color is the one to vote. But when you see such a feeling, and at the end, they will tell you that you people did not win because the other person has the army, because the other person has the police. Out of the gun, remove a gun in this matter, nobody will be above the people. We are all equal before the law. Let it talk to one another as Cameroonians, and that the nation belongs to us all. That is what the very first article of the Constitution of Cameroon says. Justice shall be rendered in the name of the people of Cameroon. It did not cite somebody's name. The people of Cameroon are greater than any other person, including myself seated here. And so if the people have voted, let's go declare that result with courage and conviction to lay a new foundation and to bring forth a new republic. It is the Cameroon we have been seeking, and that is the desire that was expressed in the change at the ballot box. There is no need for intimidation. I believe when we see democratic nations like what we have seen, in places like South Africa, in places like Tanzania, change of power is normal. It's like a class prefect giving room to another one, or a senior prefect in a school installing a new school authority, student government. We have done that. But those who are not used to find it as if it is an issue of disgrace for you to leave power. That institution, you that principal, you that head teacher, you the rector, you the director, you the minister, it is normal to leave office. It is normal to step down and give way to another.
Okay.
Let Cameroonians be happy for once that since we were born, the prices of basic commodities in Cameroon are only rising. I have never seen in Cameroon where we are called or embarrassed that the price of the bag of cement has dropped, that a liter of oil or fuel has dropped. When I was growing, fuel was 90 francs a liter. Today, it is sad that this is not equated with the revenue or the financial standard of the citizen.
Right.
That is the vote the citizen casted on the 12th, and let the wishes of the people supreme. The victory belongs to the people and not to a few individuals.
All right, thank you very much. So the Constitutional Council declares. We keep our fingers crossed. Let's try to get just one reaction before we leave the studio. If you're there, can you hear us? Welcome to the program. So quickly. Hello. All right. Unfortunately, we could not get to you. We want to thank all of you who participated. Just very quickly. Hello. Your name, your reaction, please, where you're calling us from. Unfortunately, we could not get to you. Gentlemen, Dr. Elijah Nwoko, you're on Zoom. You were part of the program this afternoon. We very much appreciate you for your time. Thank you so very much for being there. Dr. Ako John Ako, we equally appreciate you for being part of the program. Professor Mark Anthony, thank you for coming. Thanks for your time. Mr. Ndio Emmanuel, thank you very much. We equally had Mr. Tulu, who was equally part of the program this afternoon. We very much appreciate those of you who are watching us. We want to invite you to keep watching Afrique Media. We're back here, of course, to deliberate and to discuss the outcome of what will be the elections in Ivory Coast, as Ivorians went to the polls today to vote in presidential elections. We shall equally be back here, of course, to discuss the outcome of the Constitutional Council declaration on who definitely won Cameroon's October 12 presidential elections. Afrique Media is always at your disposal. We invite you to keep watching. We want to give a special appreciation to our technicians this afternoon, Mr. Carlos, who did a wonderful job, and we equally invite you to stay with us until we meet again. Bye-bye for now.